blood-sucking leeches that aren't my ex-girlfriend, face-torn androids, and an episode that raises more questions than answers. We have Season 2, Episode 5. Now I have to apologize, last week I did say there were 6 episodes, but IMDb steered me wrong, there are 8. So you can string me up to that wall and punish me, I promise I will only find it mildly erotic. There's an insane amount to get into here, so we're gonna get right into it, and if you like these deep dives, make sure you're notified with the bell on to be alerted as soon as they come out. Paul's cocoon body is taken out of an isobath. Last episode, a bio-attack by the quantum computer known as Trust left Paul in this serpent-like state. With samples having been taken from the serpent and Trust having access to them, it's not a stretch to believe this bioweapon may have been manufactured using the serpent's DNA. Sue finds out she has roughly 24 hours before the chemicals within the cocoon dissolve Paul for good, but Mother notes,
"The cellular structure is getting stronger. It's not really death at all. It's more of an evolution."
This idea of evolution and devolution plays a strong part, as we'll see later in the episode. After Marcus lost Mother's eyes last episode, he has also lost its strength associated with it, thus he must take him and his followers inland to avoid being hunted down by Mother, who is almost unstoppable in her weaponized state. Their goal is to gain access to the seeds that can grow the Tree of Knowledge, because according to the Pentagonal prophecy, those who eat the fruit from it will be made pure.
And with it he will lead his people to the Tree of Knowledge, and all who eat from it will be made pure.
King also happens to be the title of this episode, and the only one referred to as such is Father.
So if the necromancer is queen now, does that make you the king?
In my last episode breakdown, we saw how Father's eyes made the same formation as Mother's when she put in those necromancer eyes. This occurred while in the presence of the android he was creating known as Grandmother. Will he be able to acquire powers like Mother? After all, the show has made it very clear to refer to him as a simple service android multiple times this season. It's almost as if they're setting him up to be something more. It was Paul who theorized the Tree of Knowledge needed to be grown while analyzing the images found on this ancient box. He says the seeds can be found in the tarantula, but Marcus and his crew of believers are no match to take it on. Tempest briefly mentions that the encampment she was going to give her baby to has fled after Mother's coup against Trust. This also has me wondering if Marcus will end up teaming with any of the rival encampments, seeing as Mother would be a common enemy. Decima basically lays all her cards on the table, calling Marcus out as being a false prophet. But Holly and the others aren't swayed. Holly even gives Marcus an ancient Mithraic relic, Romulus's tooth. Romulus was said to be the founder of Rome. This tooth was something she found in the Mithraic wreckage in Season 1.
A tooth? It was taken from the body of Romulus. He and his brother were raised by a she-wolf.
During their search inland, they find another dodecahedron temple, similar to the one found in Season 1 near the top side of the planet. Whatever ancient civilization once held sway over this planet seemed to scatter these throughout it. Meanwhile, Mother continues her search for Holly, finding what I like to call a hologram message telling Mother and Father not to look for her. Holly tells Vita, Hunter, and Tempest to come and join her, but notice how she left out Paul and Campion. She probably thinks Paul is dead, and Campion, of course, is a non-believer, but with Campion having seen the glowing entity, he now believes Saul to be real.
Saul is in there with him.
Father's million-year-old android he's been working on has finally come online, or sorta. He says of this veil that covers her eyes, which is also known as a call,
"It would appear your call is not your call at all, but part of your build."
This thing is a part of her, but why would her face need to be shielded? Could it be that she too has necromancer eyes and has them shielded like Mother would often do? Hunter and Tempest find Father's android and are unable to turn it on. However, when Tempest is alone, the android's call reflects an ultrasound of her baby. We aren't exactly sure the extent of Grandmother's powers here. So far, we know she can glow, fly, project images, and it seems as though her body can interfere with electronics. I wonder if her presence may offset the electromagnetic field of the planet, making the tropical zone unprotected from whatever Saul's voice was in Season 1. We'll later see Sue contacted by some sort of voice that may or may not be Saul. Mother's interrogation of Cleaver serves a more philosophical purpose. She states that humans, like androids, can be reprogrammed. It's just done a little differently. Cleaver himself was so molded through conditioning that he forgets the name of his brother, the one whose eyes he took. He is so not the person he used to be that Mother said says,
"They're your eyes, Cleaver."
Completely helpless and on the brink of losing Paul, Sue prays to Saul using Vita's rosary. It's a last-ditch effort, so why the hell not? It's ironic that Paul hated Sue for not believing in Saul, but now she's praying to Saul to save him. For his safe return, she'll do anything he wants. In the brig, Father recruits Lucius to help him track down Marcus and the Believers. You may recall Lucius as being the only one not to follow Marcus, believing him to be a false prophet. In exchange for Lucius's help, Father promises him his freedom. The dodecahedron here has partially collapsed, allowing the Believers to reveal a dodecahedron cage lowering into a pit. It also has a small hole, just like the one on the other side of the planet, although this one doesn't seem to spontaneously combust people. It's also important to note this temple has no signs whatsoever of Saul or the Sol Invictus symbol. These were likely not temples to him. Aside from that, Justina believes this to be some sort of trial to be passed, and the cage is filled with all sorts of ancient symbols, including this, which is known in sacred geometry as a Metatron, a symbol that represents the journey of energy throughout the universe and a balance within the universe. It even looks like these could be seeds within the center. This symbol was seen in episode 9 of season 1, and similar Mithraic/ancient Roman symbols like the star tetrahedron here in episode 2. This idea of balance is also interesting. Right now, Mother holds all the power. Things are very out of balance, but as we theorized last episode, Grandmother may be that counterbalance. Sue experiences what she'll later deem a vision from Saul, these leeches attached to Paul's body which are the clue to his ailment. These same types of leeches were earlier taken off Vril when she was attacked by one of those sea creatures. With Campion's help, she lures one such creature using the voice of one of its own. Now I may be crazy, but this was my interpretation. Look at this shot here. It's almost as if these two mothers are doing what they need to protect their children. Sue to save Paul, and this creature hearing the sound of an injured offspring. Meanwhile, the Believers pray for Marcus when they're attacked by Vril, who should really be on the next episode of Botched. She's on a revenge mission for what her mother did. One thing I didn't quite understand here was how a robot could do harm to its owner, especially how it was such a plot point a few episodes ago about how she has to follow direct orders. Perhaps her wiring got all messed up having jumped off that cliff, but if I missed something, please let me know in the comments. Perhaps the biggest WTF moment of this episode comes when Marcus finds the body of a miraculously well-preserved creature, perhaps an ancestor of the people who lived here millennia ago. Of note is the snakeskin draped around its body, similar to the one Marcus had and of which he said stored energy. Could it be this energy that kept its body intact? Second is a Tree of Knowledge tarot card. Was this person too looking for those seeds? You'll notice Marcus puts this card in his pocket, so it may come back later. In episode 2, Decima says of these cards,
"These could contain data."
But the weirdest thing here is how Romulus's tooth somehow revives this creature. In the inside of the episode, the creator says the particles here are actually nanobots.
The tooth kind of disintegrates into these nanobots, and suddenly this creature starts to devolve.
Remember in season 1, it stated multiple times that the Mithraic use technology from scripture that they don't fully understand, and I think that's part of what's happening here. In a matter of seconds, the being quickly devolves into one of those four-legged creatures we saw in season 1. An interesting thing to note here is that before the Mithraic arrived in season 1, Father said he never saw any creatures, but after their arrival, all sorts of them begin to appear. This seems to indicate that when the Mithraic arrived, whether it be their crash or these relics, it triggered something within the planet, perhaps devolving hundreds if not thousands of these creatures. Up top, Decima has said screw you to Holly and taken off in the tank. She'll end up being killed by her own android daughter. Pretty much everyone is killed here except for Holly and Marcus, both of whom will be captured by Father and Lucius. The leeches have miraculously turned Paul right back to normal, and Mother notes that Tempest's baby is livelier than normal. Could this have anything to do with her interaction with Grandmother? Sue will have a sit-down talk with Paul about how she knew about the leeches. She's unsure what it was, whether it was Saul or some other power, but she knows it to be real and it guided her. The one difference here is that in the scriptures, Saul would always ask for something before he would help. This was not the case here. It seems as though Paul will finally be able to forgive Sue for killing his mother and taking over her identity, since she now seems to be a believer, at least of something Marcus predicted last episode.
Maybe she might come around.
but the episode ends with a reintroduction of Saul's voice, or at least that's what the show wants us to believe. It knows Sue's real name, Mary, and asks of her to grow the seeds. This is likely the same voice that told Paul in season 1 of Sue's real identity, because he too knew her real name. There's also this whole comparison to Mary in the Bible, who grew the seed of God within her. Now this Mary is being taken to do the same thing. We just don't know exactly what this seed is. Is it for a tree, a human, or something else entirely? The holy symbolism of Mary looking upward as if speaking to God further nails home this point. So yes, we have 3 more episodes until the finale, and I'm quite enjoying the season so far. As always, I want to hear your thoughts and theories in the comments below. Thanks for watching, everyone. Be sure to like and subscribe, and for more bad takes, you can always follow me on Twitter and Instagram at ThinkStoryYT. Until next time, remember,
I fear we're becoming too human to be the parents that our children deserve.